What's up, everybody? I'm going to do a quick rundown on how to use a Nikon FG. It's one of my all-time favorite Nikons ever produced. It was produced in the 80s, I think all the way up until like 89, maybe early 90s, but I'm not 100% sure on that. What I am sure is that this camera is fantastic. So, first things first, it is extremely compact. I actually have an OM1. People like to use the OM1 as the gold standard. They are just about the exact same size. OM versus the FG. They're pretty much identical in dimensions, from what I can tell, but you never really know without actually checking the stats on it, but it doesn't really matter in my opinion. This camera has the best of everything, honestly, in my opinion. It has program mode. So we've got program, aperture priority. This is your little lock. You gotta push this down to get out of aperture priority or program. It'll freely roll in your 1000 all the way to bulb. But you also have that little M90, which is a mechanical shutter. You're gonna fire at 1/90th of a second, no matter what, if you're on that setting or you have bulb. So, given that this has an electronic shutter, it would be an issue if your battery died, except for you've got that M90. So even if your battery dies, you can keep shooting at 1/90th of a second. You gotta set your aperture and everything accordingly, but it's still usable if the battery dies, unlike like an F3 has the exact same option where you switch it to the 1/90th mechanical shutter speed, but I don't know of any other Nikons. I can't remember off the top of my head which other ones have that option. I know that a lot of the other E-shutter cameras don't offer a mechanical release. They just have the electronic shutter, and then if they fail, they fail. But either way, this camera, I have a 25mm f-mount Zeiss on there right now. It's not a Nikon lens, but either way. So operating it is fairly straightforward. Shutter speeds right here. Aperture control is manual, and if you're setting it to program mode, you need to set your lens to its highest aperture possible. So this one would be f/22, and that way your camera has full control over the whole aperture range. So that's not bad. And then also right here you have your exposure compensation. You have plus or minus 2 stops, which is nice. It's not necessary. I don't really use it much. But I know a lot of people do like having exposure compensation, so you have plus or minus 2 stops on these. Your ISO ratings, you can go from 3200 all the way down to 12. So you got a really good range of ISO ratings on this camera. I have some film that's an ISO 8. And so I'm going to be shooting that out of like my Topcon or my F2 or something that's fully mechanical no matter what. That way I can just manually meter and use different lenses, because these ones, my only real complaint with these FGs is, one second, sorry, always cover your lenses, guys. My only complaint is the auto indexing pin is not movable. Like on my FM, I have a little button and I can flip this tab up, and I can use pre-AI lenses on it. So I can use my 1960s Nikon glass from my F on my FM, because I can flip this AI tab out of the way. Just like on the F3, you can also flip that tab out of the way on the F3. The FG, as obviously for cost saving, because this is an entry-level or consumer like approach camera, they got rid of the option to be able to flip that up. So if you're trying to buy a camera like a Nikon in order to use your pre-AI glass, don't buy an FG. This won't work for you. You won't be able to mount that glass to this without damaging your AI pen. So remember that if that's what you want to do, I recommend getting a Nikon FM, because you have a fully mechanical everything, and then you also have the option to move that AI tab out of the way on the FM. The FE, I believe, as well had that. The F3 does. There's a handful of Nikon cameras that do it, but there's not many. There's more that don't than there are that do. So yeah, it's typical film bay opening. Pull up on your rewind knob, releases. This has metal, has a metal shutter. It's not a cloth curtain, which is nice. It's also a focal plane. Sorry, it's a vertical plane shutter, not a focal plane. Please forgive that. So vertical. But yeah, that's about it. You got your self timer here. You wind it, you set your shutter speed, and then on these you'll set your timer, fire your shutter. It'll count down after it locks the mirror up, fires, and you're good to go. That's about it. That's the Nikon FG. One of, in my opinion, the most useful and affordable Nikons ever made. Like, you can still get, I paid $50 for this camera, and it came with 2 Tokina zoom lenses. I need to really go through and check those out, but I don't know. Tokina, I've heard good things about their glass, their vintage glass, so I'm not too worried about it not being super good. Also, I got the whole kit for $50 with the 2 lenses, a bag, and then the camera. And the camera itself is worth more than $50 technically, because it's the black one, and this is about $75 to $100 camera if it didn't have these beauty marks where the previous owner had dropped it. Yeah, a couple little dings. But as you saw in the video, it's a fully functioning camera, which is pretty sweet. And now I have a black FG to shoot alongside my silver FG. And now I'm done. That's it. I don't need to... Oh, let's actually finish the job so you can watch me reassemble this nifty vintage. This is like the 1980s version of Peak Designs quick release, I think. This is like a 1980s version of a Peak Designs anchor system. I know it's not at all, but it's pretty cool, honestly. Like, I like this sliding tab system. You hook them in. Man, I am just struggling to do this. Maybe if I hook them at the same time. Yep, hooking them at the same time was the way to go. Also, it helps when I'm not pushing this collar up at the same time as trying to get these bad boys in there. Yeah, see, putting them in at the same time was the move, and I didn't do it in the first place, which is fine. It just made me look weird and struggle. But there we go, everybody. Nikon FG. The Zeiss doesn't matter. Normally these have a 50mm 1.8 E series lens on there, and I love my 1.8 E series, but I don't have a second one. So this one's gonna have the Zeiss on it for a while. Or one of my other E series glass. I have multiple E series glass. I have the 32 to 76, the 70 to 210, the 51.8. Maybe I'll do a video about the E series glass and mount them on my Z6 II and do some sample photos and compare the E series against the non-E series, because I have pretty close to the exact same focal lengths on all of them, from E series to non-E series, on all the Nikon glass. So maybe I'll start doing sample photo videos or something of these older the older Nikon glass compared to the different versions of itself. But who knows? If you made it this far, thank you for sticking around and watching. I hope you learned something from my sporadic and chaotic video, which I'm hoping to get better about this. I need to start writing scripts and all that, but one day at a time. I need to get my store up and running so I can sell these cameras that I've been posting. Yeah, nonstop. Like, I love it though. It's helping me continue to purchase cameras and afford my hobby, which is a very not cheap hobby. But if you made it this far, please like the video, subscribe if you want to continue seeing videos about cameras. I'm hoping to do other kind of productions, actual videos, and then also like behind the scenes stuff. I've been shooting a lot of weddings lately, so if you want to see some of the stuff I do at weddings or anything like that, if you have any photography stuff you want to know about on the film side, comment down below, ask me questions. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks.